Hey gamers, this is Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire, and today I'm going to be reviewing Lands of Galzyr. This is another game from Sami Laxo that's set in the same universe as Dawn of Peacemakers and Dale of Merchants. However, this one is like a story choose-your-own adventure game, so let's have a quick look at how it works. Alright, so here's just a little look at the board for Lands of Galzyr. This is a very story-driven game. I don't want to spoil anything, so we're going to keep this very brief, very tight, very short. But essentially, you are exploring this beautiful land of Galzyr as one of these four characters. So you have a polecat, a northern banded newt, a frilled lizard, and a river kingfisher. And all of this art is just so lovingly done. It's really beautiful. And you are going to be tracking a number of things on your player board. There's little spots for supply, and one of the things that you're going to use the most is actually over here. You're going to be slotting some of these little plastic pieces for your skill checks. So you place pieces in these slots to indicate that you have a particular skill in a certain area on the wheel, and that's going to play into your die rolls. So every character is going to start with some of these slots filled, and you'll be able to do a little bit of customization as you go, so you can play in the style of your choosing. So essentially what's going to happen is you're going to travel around this world. Let's get these little cute animals off of the board. And you're going to go to these various locations. There are actually cards that fit over each of these locations that can change with time. So you can go to the same place and see just totally different stuff based on how the game is constructed, how it's going for you. And you're going to make choices about how the story is going to proceed based on your skills and based on the options that come up. So basically each of your starting characters is on their own special quest. So everybody's going to start in a different place and have a different setup, but the game is going to proceed differently based on choices you make. And also you can keep coming back to this game as the same character and then see how the world continues to respond to you as you play, which I think is really cool. There are a number of different considerations in the game. One is time, so time will pass, and if you do something on a Thursday as opposed to on a Monday, you actually can get a different encounter. And the board also responds to the seasons, as it does have a winter side as well. So this is truly a board game that is hoping to live and breathe with you as you play it, and it does this through two things. One is cards. So there are cards that slot into these places. There are quest cards, there are item cards, there are different cards that you can draw. And then in conjunction with those cards, you have a thing called the Book of Adventures, which I'm also going to show you. So you don't actually get to look at any of these cards, but I'm just going to show you that there's this little organizer with a bunch of dividers. There are sometimes multiple cards with the same number on them because you can get a random draw, or there are a number of different, little things that'll play into the game, a lot of subtleties throughout these decks. But essentially, you're going to be responding to drawing cards that are specific numbers from here, and then resolving various events that happen on them. And in order to get the full effect of what's on these cards, you're going to have to use the Book of Adventures. That's online, and you can access it on your computer, your iPad, your phone, whatever. So I'm actually going to go and have a quick look at that so you can get a glimpse of it. All right, so I don't want to go too far into this because I don't want any spoilers, but if you're going to play Lands of Galzyr, you have to use the Book of Adventures. So you can do it on an iPad. I'm just using a screencast app to record this for you, but you'll go to Start New Game. And you're going to select the month. So the times in this game change. You can play one game in January. You might play another game in October. So you tell them what month it is. And then you can set what day it is. So this will tell you what side of the board to use and all of that. But maybe it's Monday. Maybe it's Thursday. You just set the time tracker. And then what you're doing is for any scene, any numbers that you see on your cards, you're going to select over here. So I'm just going to hit 1. And so it'll give you a little flavor text, and then it might ask you some questions about cards that you have. And if you go through, the other thing that you'll see is there are little skill checks that you might run into. There are different choices that you're going to have. So I don't want to give too much of this away, but basically you will do some stuff on the board, but really the heart of the game is here in the Book of Adventures. And so this is where you're going to go to make your choices, report the results of your skill checks, put in what card you're on, and all that good stuff. So you can also download it, by the way. So if you don't have reliable internet connection, or you want to play without being attached to the internet because sometimes that's nice, then you actually have the option of downloading this onto your computer, your iPad, your phone, whatever you're going to use to play it, and you can just pull it up and it'll work without an internet connection. So that's what the Book of Adventures looks like. And yeah, let's get back to the main screen. All right, so we're back from the computer. If you don't like computers and board games to mix, well, you really need that for this one to work. But I have not found it too difficult, especially because it's downloadable. So that's kind of nice. Maybe one of the last things I want to talk about, just because I don't want to ruin anything, is that when you do your little skill improvements, so here we have Isala. Let's say that Isala is extra scholarly, although this is actually not the scholarly character according to beginning stats, because this one is a streetwise creature with the power of flight. But let's just pretend. What that would mean is that on a skill check, you have these black base dice, and if it was a test where I wanted to have better scholarship or better chances of rolling the skills to each side, because basically if you're good at scholarship, you might have some side boosts to the other skills, then I could replace one of these base dice with a green die that has sides that are a little bit more favorable to me if I'm trying to do a check in this range of the wheel. One thing I do want to reassure you about, though, is that skill checks are fun. They're part of the game, but they don't actually end the game. If you fail a skill check, then you fail the skill check. The story will just proceed. It might be in a way that wasn't what you were hoping for. It might surprise you in one way or another, but you are going to be able to continue. It's not like you roll and you fail a skill check and you lose. This isn't a game where you die. This is a game where you just have a journey and it proceeds as it is meant to, based on your choices and the dice that you roll. One thing that's sort of interesting about this game is, as you'll see up here, you have a prestige track. Technically, the win condition is trying to get as much prestige as possible. You can play a competitive version of this game where the person with the most prestige wins. But, and I'll mention this more in my final thoughts that are coming up, I don't really play the game that way, and I'm not totally sure that you should either. So actually, let's just go ahead and get some final thoughts. Overview of this game: you're traveling around, you are doing a bit of choose your own adventure, there's some skill checks, and you're using a combination of cards and a little website to interpret what's happening in the story and find out where to go next. All right, so now for some final thoughts. I just want to preface this with the fact that historically I actually tend not to like this kind of game. I always end up frustrated because games of this nature have a hard time getting the right mix of story and game. So it's a board game. A lot of times, it'll feel to a designer like there has to be some game in there and then there's some story. So I don't really like things like Near and Far or Above and Below, where you're basically playing a game and there's some text that shows up that for some reason just does not do it for me. Sleeping Gods did not do it for me. So when I decided to have a look at Lands of Galzyr, I was not sure how it was going to go. Sami Laxo wanted to send me a copy because I really liked Dawn of Peacemakers. I thought it was really conceptually interesting, and he wanted me to have the next installment. And I am so glad he sent it, because I really like Lands of Galzyr. It's not necessarily to my full taste as a board gamer, but I really like and respect what this is, and I can actually see this being the one story game that I hold on to. And there are several reasons for that. The main one is that the little subtle ways in which the world of the game changes with time is so cool. The things that you do impact the world in these really small kind of incremental ways, but that if you keep playing the game, it becomes clearer and clearer that you actually did kind of do something in the land of Galzyr during your adventures. And I think that is really exciting. And it's really nice that you can keep playing with the same character again and again and keep kind of getting deeper into the story and having more things happen, discovering more parts of the world. It's all really just satisfying in a way that most kind of narrative choose your own adventure games really aren't for me. I think that the success of this one also comes from the game's emphasis on story. So, for example, a failed skill check doesn't cause you to lose the game, it just changes the story. So you can keep going with the story, you don't have to stop playing just because things didn't work out your way. You can instead continue your adventure and just kind of see what happens next and decide how you want to respond. So there was never a point where I felt like I was getting cheated out of something in terms of just not getting to do anything I wanted to do because of bad rolls. And that really was nice, because I don't like hitting kind of a narrative fork in the road and then feeling like I got cheated out of the result that I wanted because of an unlucky die roll. At that point, if you're playing solo, maybe you just flip the die and keep going the way you want. And that's not really the point either. So this is a game where I felt like I could trust the game to take me along for the ride no matter what happened. And that was something that I liked and appreciated a lot. That said, Lands of Galzyr does have some of the same issues that I always have with games of this nature. And one of them is that it's So this one has fairly low overhead for what it is. You know, the card system is pretty good. The dice are fairly simple. The save system is actually pretty good. So I'm not saying that it's like a whole lot. It's not a super fiddly game, but it's still more fiddly than I'd want just to progress through a story. So I definitely got to situations where I was like, okay, let me get the little app and let me click the thing and let me do this. And, you know, it can sometimes feel like you're doing a whole lot for just a little drip, drip, drip storyline. You know, that's the way I always feel with games like this, and so that frustration is exactly expected from me. If you have a high patience for it, then you're not going to notice it at all, and it'll be completely fine for you. And the other thing that always kind of bugs me when you have a story come out with a game is that, like, I get why the prestige system is there, but I really can't ever imagine playing this game competitively and trying to get the most prestige, because there are a lot of situations where it feels kind of random when you're trying to figure out what's going to get you prestige. There's no obvious path to success. Instead, you know, really the story is going to take you along for the ride, and so there's agency in the sense of what you choose to do and how you build your skill dice, but you don't really have any control over this story. If you play this competitively and you win, it's not really because you're better at progressing through a narrative than somebody else. So the gamey aspects of Lands of Galzyr kind of interrupt my journey through the story, at least for me, and I think that that's just how I'm always going to feel about games like this. That said, again, Lands of Galzyr in a way does remind me of, for example, Tales of the Arabian Nights, which is another kind of narrative game that I personally find highly amusing, because if you are with the right people, or if it's just you, it doesn't actually matter who wins, or, you know, the prestige aspect of the game just kind of fades into the background, because everybody's having such a good time with the story. And if you're playing Lands of Galzyr with that attitude, I think you're going to have a really good time. Because this game is going to take you along for a fun ride every time you play it. You just have to kind of let it work its magic and make sure that you are, you know, keeping track of the dates and the times and everything correctly, because the world really will kind of tick along in unique ways based on all of that. So I would also be remiss if I did not mention that the art for this game is just beautiful. As usual, things from the world of Galzyr look amazing. I think the characters are so cute. The card art is lovely. The board art is lovely. There's just so much to appreciate aesthetically in this game. So Sami Laxo has done it again in that respect, and it helps a lot with immersion into the world. The last thing I want to talk about is maybe the app. So I guess it's not really an app. It's like a downloadable story file that you can interact with. I don't know, but I like to just do it on the website, because I set my computer up a little bit further away and I use my mouse to navigate, so I can have the whole game in front of me without feeling like it interrupted anything. That's just my personal choice. A lot of people, I think, do it on an iPad. The good news about the app is that it's very easy to use, and I do like that you are able to download it, which means that, you know, there's never going to be a day, if you buy this game and you just make sure you can download the file, that you won't be able to play it. If you just don't want to touch devices while you're playing your board game, that's something you're going to have to be honest with yourself about if you are deciding whether to get this game, because it's unavoidable. You absolutely need the computerized aspect of this to make the world tick and to get all the subtleties and changes that you want when you're playing a story like this. So you're going to have to make your deal. Can you stand tech in your games or not? I can, and I found it rewarding. So overall, do I recommend Lands of Galzyr? Ultimately, yes. Yeah, I really do. I think that as narrative and storytelling games go, this is really a delight. It is not a heavy game. It is not a super thinky game. But if you want to play a game where you're just going along for the ride and you are having a narrative experience, but you also want to play a board game, then this is the best implementation of that kind of gaming style that I have personally seen. And so if I was going to have one narrative/story game, right now it would be Lands of Galzyr. Is it necessarily a forever keeper for me? I'm not sure about that yet. I don't know how often I'm really going to get it out now that I've done a bunch of review plays, but I really respect what the game is doing. I did enjoy my experience with it, and I say that as somebody who typically does not enjoy this kind of game. The writing is good, the art is good, the story is cute, and, you know, there's just a lot to recommend it, even if you just want to look at it as sort of a marvel of world building and design. So that is Lands of Galzyr. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, give to my Patreon if you're feeling super generous, and most of all, happy gaming.